Men, you own dress shirts, and all too often they're boxy in the torso and chest. Well, there's a way to slimify those. Like that term, slimify? That's what we're going to do. Take this shirt in at the side seams so that there's not so much for a man to have to tuck into his pants. I'll show you how. First, determine how much to take in. Have your fella get into his shirt. This time I had him put it on right side out. You can do it inside out. It might actually be easier that way. And just pin alongside the chest and torso area, however much feels more comfortable to him. Now I pinned both sides, and as it turns out, they aren't even. I didn't take in an even amount. I didn't pin in an even amount on each side. No problem. I'll simply take the measurements, each place, average them out, and that's how much I'll actually take this shirt in. First, I want to show you the nature of this shirt's side seams. This is what is referred to as flat fell seaming. The seam looks pretty much the same on the front as it does on the back. In this event, we're not going to duplicate flat fell seaming. It's rather difficult, and there is a shortcut way. I always like to show the shortcut way. You can, of course, opt to do flat fell seaming if you know how. It's up to you. Instead, we're going to do mock flat fell seaming. We'll begin by pressing back the flat fell seam. I have the shirt inside out with the back part facing me, and I want this flat fell seam pressed towards me, up and through the underarm,